Knock, knock.
Hello.
Hi. Just wanted to ask you, this is Mina Hyrie, acupuncturist, about a brief history of acupuncture. In your words, if you could tell me, what are the benefits and how is it that it came to London or the UK or the West?
Acupuncture's been around for over 3,000 years and originated in China and was brought over to the West by intrepid explorers, namely the French, and it came over to France through their involvement in Vietnam, and also migrated over to Northern Europe through through the colonial empire, really, as a result of people bringing back amazing things that they saw overseas. And it is fantastic to treat a large range of things, and while it's been used in the West, it has been adapted, and although its roots are clearly Chinese, it has been adapted to treat the Western person.
So it's complementary to Western medicine?
Used alongside Western medicine rather than one or the other. Absolutely complementary. And in fact, in hospitals in China, it's used completely alongside, so somebody could be having dialysis and receiving Chinese herbal remedies as well as acupuncture.
So as an ancient practice in the modern day, particularly in the Western world and say a busy place like London, what kinds of things would one come for treatment?
People come for literally everything you could imagine. Most people present, they used to present when they'd tried everything else had failed. They didn't know about acupuncture, so it was a last resort and nobody really wanted to have needles stuck into them. Now, I think people are a lot more educated about the scope of acupuncture, what it can be used for. So they come for insomnia, for digestive issues. A lot of women present for menstrual irregularities, for fertility, for migraine, skin disorders, really anything you can imagine. A lot of, obviously in a city like London, a lot of them are stress-related disorders, so that can be whether to do with whether it be digestion or sleep or appetite and so forth.
And would that be the same for, say, treating men's concerns?
Men often come more with their physical complaints initially, so they might come for backache or tennis elbow or frozen shoulder, that sort of thing. And then after they've entered for those more physical complaints, they'll then say, well, actually my sleep's not so good and I'm feeling, sometimes I get palpitations, and those things then come out. But absolutely, there's no sort of gender divide in terms of what acupuncture is used for.
You mentioned something that's possibly a little bit scary. You said, don't want needles stuck into them, but is it really that bad?
The needles are very, very fine. So a hypodermic needle is hollow and has a fluid going into it when you have an injection. Whereas an acupuncture needle, particularly those used in my practice and in the West, are very, very fine. In fact, I can show you, it's more like a horsehair. It might not even show up on film. And they're inserted not very deep into the skin. So that is the red is the handle, and then that's the needle. So it's more like a bendy wire. And it might go in a few millimeters. So people's idea about what a needle is probably a sort of thick, hollow tube of metal, whereas an acupuncture needle is quite different. There are very different needles used, and often those in films are much thicker because they show up. But generally what I use in my practice and what is used a lot in the West is a very fine, unobtrusive needle.
Are you just poking them anywhere in the body, or what?
They are used all over the body. I can show you one of these, depending on what the person comes for. So they may not be at the site of the complaint, so a person might come in for stomach upset and there might be needles in the feet or wrists. In fact, a lot of the acupuncture points used are on the extremities. By that I mean below the knees and below the elbows, but points are also used on the torso and on the back. And normally a combination of points all over.
Wow, that's really amazing. So many points. And what are those points and lines called again?
So they're meridians, and the acupuncture points along the meridians stimulate the energy or qi to bring about balance in the system, because the understanding in the Chinese medicine model is that dis-ease or illness or any symptom that we have comes about as a result of an underlying imbalance. So in other words, the issue that we present with, as I said, backache, frozen shoulder, etc., is, if you will, the branch of the tree. but something is going on underneath that's allowed that. We don't all have backache. Some of us do, some of us don't. Some of us are predisposed to ulcers, some are not. So Chinese medicine is interested in that predisposition. Why is one person predisposed to a particular set or constellation of symptoms and another not? And the idea is to treat using needles and strengthen the underlying condition so that the symptom then dies down accordingly.
So in a nutshell, why did you get involved in acupuncture?
I got into acupuncture as an open-minded but sceptical patient myself. I had done a degree in a completely different subject, and a friend of mine said, "Oh, go for acupuncture, it'll be good, you'll enjoy it and it will be very helpful." I said, "Oh yeah, I'll go." And I thought, I'll go one time, but as I said, I was open-minded but sceptical. I thought, if it works, great, if it doesn't, oh well. And I went along, and it was very, very powerful. It wasn't in the first session, but I went for a few sessions, and it was almost as if someone had taken me by my shoulders and shook me and said, "Wake up." And I thought, anything that works this powerfully, this profoundly, I would like to study. And in those days, in the late 80s, it was not a fashionable thing to study at all. But I haven't turned back. Here I am today.
Great. So if somebody were to ask you about getting acupuncture treatment themselves, what would you say to them?
I would suggest that they go to the British, in this country it would be the British Acupuncture Council, or a membership body, so all practitioners are bound by code of practice, code of ethics, and have passed a sort of recognisable standard of either degree or diploma. And so thereby you're sure that the person has correct training. And then I would say probably ring up 3 different people, and some of them will, I offer a service whereby people can come in and have a chat and see if they think it fits, because everyone works a little bit differently. So I would say make 3 phone calls, speak to 3 different practitioners, and decide from those that are on the register which you think will suit you best.
Is it, so if I wanted to get in touch with you, how would I go about it?
I can be reached on 07957 726 072, or via my website, which is www.minahiryacupuncture.co.uk, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, Mina.